Never seen, but you all right. Don't get it. So this is for the If you'd like to call the meeting to order. And welcome everyone for coming on such a hot day. Jared, would you do?
Yes, sir. Miss Diana Arnold.
Here.
Honorable Scott Bates. Here. Honorable John Black. Honorable Bernard Bowling.
Here.
Honorable Byron Chapman. Honorable Jack Kaufman. Honorable Troy Ethington. Mr. Chris John Streets for the Honorable Jeff Cahan.
Here.
Let's see. And to go back a minute, we do see Mayor Ethington, so I've got you listed.
Yes, sir.
Honorable Nicole George for the Honorable Craig Greenberg. Mr. Keith Griffey. Here. Mr. Albert Tubby Purcell for the Honorable Treva Hodges.
Here.
Honorable Maria Johnson.
Here.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. John Park for the Honorable Dane Eisen.
Here.
Mr. Andy Crouch for the Honorable Mike Moore. Honorable John Ogburn. Here. Mr. Brian Abrams for the Honorable Carol Pike.
Here.
Mr. Kevin Beatty for the Honorable Ryan Ramsey. Honorable John Schellenberger.
Here.
Honorable Jerry Summers. Here. Honorable Rick Tonini.
Here.
See here. Honorable Jim Travis.
Here.
We've got you. Honorable Jim Travis.
Here.
Gotcha. Honorable Scott Travis. Here. And then the Honorable Kevin Nuss for the Honorable David Vogel.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Thank you. Once again, I'd like to welcome everyone for bearing the heat and coming out. You listen to the weather, we're all in trouble, so stay cool. Next item is the minutes from the last meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review? And looking for a motion.
So moved.
Have a motion, a second,
Second.
and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next item, Kentucky State Data Center, Matthew Luther.
Yes, thank you, Matt. However you want to present, either we can have you up here, if you want to sit back at the podium, wherever you're at. But again, as council member, Chairman Bowling said, we have Matt Ruther for the Kentucky State Data Center. We're very excited to welcome him. So thank you. Look forward to your presentation.
All right, so I'm a professor at the University of Louisville, the director of the State Data Center. What I'm here to talk about is just a little bit about demographics of the community of the region. You know, we recently, I mean, and it's not recent now, but we recently had a census, and believe it or not, we just got the final data in July. So it's already sort of outdated, but I'm going to talk some about that, some of the findings from the census. And then a couple of things about the future, what we're looking for in the future. And if you're part of the transportation committee, I apologize because you've seen parts of this last year. So all right, I had it pulled up. Thank you. So just a couple of big items about sort of what the community looks like now. Between 2010 and 2020, housing in the KIPDA region, and this includes Southern Indiana as well, all of the nine counties, grew about 7%. You can see all of the counties had some growth except for Trimble and Henry, which saw small declines. And most of the growth is happening, as most people know, along I-64 corridor, Spencer and Shelby counties, but we're still seeing really strong growth in Oldham County and Bullitt County as well. One of the big changes that we've seen recently is this drop in home ownership. So home ownership rates declined by almost 2 percentage points over the last 10 years. This is not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, home ownership is great and all, but we have seen a lot of apartments going in, particularly on the sort of the outer edges of the region. So some of this is represented here. Jefferson County, of course, which represents the bulk of the region, saw almost a 3 percentage point decline in home ownership rates. So not necessarily bad, but it is something to keep an eye on. Home ownership rate in Jefferson County now is about 60%. This is a little low for an urban county. It's usually more like 65 or 66%. So it is a little lower than normal, but the suburban counties, of course, have much higher rates like we would expect. And then another trend that we're seeing is this growth in single person households. So, you know, a household is one person or multiple people, either related or not. And we are seeing a tremendous growth in the number of people that are living by themselves. And this, you know, this 1 percentage point that you see here may not seem like a lot, but it really is when we're talking about 30% of the region. So when we hear about housing crises and lack of affordable housing and things of that nature, you know, this is a really big deal because houses that used to have a household of 2 or 3 people now have a household of 1 person. So our population is increasing, but the household size is decreasing. And so this is part of what is affecting the housing crisis. A couple of other things, again, our population is growing in every county except Trimble County. This is an unusual. Rural counties are seeing declines in population pretty much across the board. And then the other big story with the population is the growth in diversity. So Hispanic and Asian populations are still a fairly small percentage of KIPDA relative to not relative to the rest of Kentucky, but relative to the rest of the United States. But we are seeing tremendous growth in both of these groups, more than 50% in both groups over the last decade, which is something to really keep an eye on. So that was up until 2020. So since 2020, we have seen continued housing unit growth, and this is particularly visible in Clark County. So along the River Ridge area, sort of where the new bridge is, there's a tremendous amount of growth going in Charlestown as well. You know, obviously we see more housing units in Jefferson County, but it's, you know, 6 or 7 times larger. So we are seeing a lot of growth there, but we are seeing housing growth in every county in the region, and about 10,000 units, give or take, over the past 3 years. We'll skip that. It's not that interesting. So I'm going to talk a little bit about population projections. Population projections are what we expect to see in the future, right? We do these using a method that takes into account the 3 components of population change, fertility, mortality, and migration. Okay, these are the only ways that a population can change. And we do them for the population, and then from that we derive household and housing unit projections into the future. Of course, I have no crystal ball. We don't know that this is going to be what happens. If any of those rates that we use change, we're going to have to calculate a whole new series of them. Fortunately, fertility and mortality are fairly stable, notwithstanding the last 2 years because of COVID. But generally, they don't change very quickly. Migration is much more fluid, and it's also the most difficult to sort of, you know, to extrapolate into the future. So we do these every couple of years. This series here is from last year, from 2022. We'll probably do them again in 2024, maybe 2025, just to update them. So these are the vital stats that we're looking at within the KIPDA region. Unlike many regions in Kentucky, we are seeing more births than deaths, quite a few. These are 5-year intervals. So for example, in the 2000 to 2005 period, we saw about 50,000 deaths. We saw about 70,000 births. Okay. And in many regions, this has flipped around. So we are seeing more deaths than births. And of course, this has to do with the age distribution of the place, and also we see higher fertility rates in some counties. I'll show you in just a second. And migration, we're getting about 25,000 new residents into the region every 5 years, and that's fairly stable across the last 2 decades. So like I said, we see fertility and mortality varies across the KIPDA area. Henry County actually has the highest fertility rate in the state. I'm sorry, not in the state, in the region. It's about 2.1. This is higher than what we call replacement level fertility, which is about 2.05. And these, all of these ones here, and particularly this 1.6 in Bullitt County, these are below replacement fertility. So people aren't having enough babies to sort of replace themselves, is what that means. Life expectancy, of course, Oldham County has the highest life expectancy in the state, but we do see fairly life expectancies across all regions. These went down. All life expectancies went down in 2020, obviously because of COVID. We expect them to rebound in 2023. We haven't actually gotten that data yet. But these are life expectancies at birth. You know, if someone is born today, this is how long they would expect to live. So this is what we expect to see into the future. Right now, KIPDA's population, the region is about 1.2 million, give or take a couple thousand. And we expect a growth of about 12% overall through 2050 to about 1.37 million. So this is about 150,000.
How old will she be to be honest?
Growth at about 150,000 over the next 30 years. We expect households to grow faster. So like I said, we're seeing more single person households. So this is part of the reason why we're seeing faster household growth. Not tremendously faster, but a little bit. There's going to be about 75,000 new households over the next 30-year period. And of course, that's going to have consequences for the housing stock, which is already tight and is going to become tighter unless, unless we start acting differently. So at the county level, again, we do expect the growth to stay in this, in the I-64 corridor and the I-71 corridor, the suburban counties. We do expect Trimble County to continue to lose people. Trimble and Henry counties, you might sort of, I mean, they're suburban, you might see people commuting from them. I think they're a little too far for this region for people to commute in. I know people do it, but these are big counties for Kentucky, and they are not as, things aren't as close together as you might see in other places. Jefferson County, we do expect to grow, and this sort of, this hides the fact that there's going to be a lot of movement between these places, right? So people are moving out of Jefferson County to the suburbs. People from rural areas are moving into Jefferson County. There's this flux, but this is an overall change. Within the rest of the state, we expect to see a lot of population loss. So 8 of the ads in the area development districts, we do expect to see population loss. You can see what's happening over in southeastern Kentucky. Nearly every county is expected to lose population. You see something similar in the West, and all of the growth basically is in this I-65 corridor here and the I-71 corridor going through the Bluegrass ad. So the vital stats going forward, again, our birth and our number of births and deaths are starting to converge. By about 2040, we would expect them to flip. We'll see more deaths than births. This is because the baby boomers are getting older. And as this group reaches its max age, we will see more births than deaths, but it's not going to be a lot. And the reason why this matters, of course, is that without absent migration, you will start seeing population loss in those cases. And of course, because we are assuming that these rates stay similar going forward, our migration rate I have as sort of flat. But again, that changes more rapidly than the others, so that these may be updated going forward. So all population change comes from the age distribution. You have certainly heard in the past about population aging. We're seeing the population get older. Median ages are going up by about a year every 10 years, which again doesn't seem like a lot, but is a really big deal. We're seeing huge growth in these older age groups. So right now, these are your baby boomers. They're in the youngest are about 55, the oldest are about 75. And so this group is moving into retirement. We have another sort of bulge in the population here. These are the millennials. Gen X is sort of in the middle. This was the baby bust. And so this millennial group is sort of going to replace the boomers as the primary. It's already as big as the boomers, but it's going to replace them in the labor force as the primary driver of the labor force. Going forward, you can see that from this is 2020, this is 2020, 2050. What you see at the top is an expansion of these older age groups. This is a fairly large expansion. We're seeing a lot of growth in what demographers, not me, but other demographers call the very old, which is age 85 or more. And these groups, of course, have special needs in terms of housing, and housing particularly, but in society as a whole. So this is something also to keep an eye on. Incidentally, these little gray areas, these are people that live in group quarters, primarily dorms and prisons in this region. I typically will avoid doing projections by race unless there's a compelling reason to do so. I did these for KCTCS, who asked for them, basically. So what we see going into the future for the KIPDA region, the white population is going to peak out in about, well, probably right around now. It's going to start declining as a share of the population, but also in absolute terms. Black population will continue to grow, although it's much flatter than it has been in the more recent past. And most of the growth is happening down here with the Hispanic population and the non-Hispanic other population, which includes primarily people that identify as more than one race. So going forward, this is where all of the growth is going to happen. And these are not, a lot of these are foreign-born individuals, but not necessarily everyone, right? So there's people moving from other places. So that's where the growth is happening. Finally, I have done some projections by neighborhood. We use census tracts, which are a unit of geography in the census, to approximate neighborhoods. And so this is what we see. And I know this is really hard to see because I tried to fit everything and it doesn't work all that well. But what we see is the neighborhoods. So this is the edge of Jefferson County. This is Shelby County. And for some reason, I have left Spencer County off here. I apologize to Spencer County. We see growth up there in the Charlestown area and north of that. And we see population loss in some of the urban services district, primarily, believe it or not, in the Germantown area. And some of this population loss that we're seeing within the urban services district is not necessarily bad. The households are staying the same. It's just that fewer people living in them, right? So this happens a lot when neighborhoods transition. So you have a family of 3 or 4 moving out, a couple or a single person moving in. The number of households is the same, but your population does go down a little bit. And then just a close-up view of that. So, sort of to sum it all up, over the next 30 years, we're going to need approximately 75,000 new housing units. This takes into account the number of new households, vacancy rates, which are really, really low, and household size, which, although it's been declining, we sort of expect to level off soon, if it hasn't already. The number of school-age children, this would be between ages 5 and 19, is expected to increase by about 10%. This is about 22,000 kids. Most of this is going to happen in the suburbs, in Shelby, Clark, Oldham, and Bullitt counties. And then there's going to be this huge growth in the older population, so about 60,000 more people age 65 plus. And then the population of the very old will more than double. Which, 44,000 is not a tremendously high number, but relative to the whole region. But because these individuals have such special needs, usually, it is something to sort of keep an eye on going forward. So this projection report is available on online if you are interested in it. It's 300 pages of the dullest reading you'll probably ever have to do in your life. But it does have everything that I have shown today. This is my contact info. Feel free to get in touch if you have any questions. And of course, follow our Twitter account or whatever it's called now. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, as long as they're kind of easy.
Matt, do you mind if I share this presentation?
No, sure.
Thank you.
I was just really good at it, or you guys are overwhelmed? Yes.
Digs into housing and what's here now, what is actually needed in the future. I know a lot of our local communities have reached out regarding the housing crisis, I guess.
So I have not, but of course, the Metropolitan Housing Coalition has.
Okay.
They put out a report on metropolitan housing every year.
Is that more the urban area and the rural area?
It's
I've seen that I try to research has all been focused more on the urban area.
so I believe they look at the whole metro area. So that would be a little bit more than the KIPDA region. But of course, because Jefferson County is so such a large share, it mostly looks at Jefferson County. But there's a lot of data on housing units from the census and from the American Community Survey. I haven't put anything in here, but you can get really interesting things on the age of housing, obviously owner occupancy rates, but also median household incomes by owner versus renter, when the housing was built, the units and structure, all of these things are easily available. I'm actually doing a study for the city of New Albany right now that is exactly on housing.
I'm Felicia with Director.
I'm familiar.
Yeah, me and Ethan will probably reach out to you regarding.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
The crowd.
Any other questions, comments?
Only comment I'd like to say is that it's exciting to know that there are gonna be 75,000 more homes for me to sell in 2050. And she's only been on 7, Jared. Still be going on.
Fortunately, they won't all come at once.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. Next item is the July financial. Rita?
The first report, the tuition report summary of L. And on that, on our CED totals, we have spent, $101,019. Our transportation totals are $461,598. And you look on page 25, it'll show you at the bottom that the social services is $587,639. Our total agency operating costs are $1,250,160. And then our agent program related is $1,065,169 for a total of $2,315,000. $2,315,329. Then on our next page, on page 26, we go into our agency-wide line item for our revenues and expenses. And this page pretty much is a agency-wide of our summary of the elements of the exact total, but we have spent in this period in July, 6.59% of our budget. Looking at our balance sheet, just wanted to point out a few of the totals that we have as far as cash. We have is $202,029.24. On our total liabilities, it's $19,734,135.79. And just pointing out that our total liabilities and projects are $9,137,078.44. And then we have a difference of just $7,824.97 for our approved approved for our leave. And that's all I have unless someone has questions. No questions? Thank you.
Questions? Okay, thank you. Rita.
Thank you.
Action is requested. I think we need a motion to,
I'll make a motion, to set the financial report. I'll second.
okay, we have a motion and a second, all in favor? Aye, any opposed? Motion carried. Next item, Transportation Policy Committee, Andy.
Good afternoon. The Transportation Policy Committee just got finished with our meeting. It began at 12:30 this afternoon in this room. I'll cover a couple of the agenda items and then we'll cover one in particular on a subsequent agenda here. Should I not leave the shit? So a couple of things we went over and TPC approved this month. One was the shift boosts, the booster projects that got boosted to the KYPC shift process. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Jeremy Shaw presented our performance management plan update. So in particular, we owed Federal Highways Administration some affirmation of how we're going to monitor certain things in our region, namely pavement condition, bridge condition, and some congestion related measures. On some of those, we're choosing our option to support the state's targets. That's the option that virtually all MPOs choose. KIPDA has chosen the other option many times, and we're going to choose that option again this time on at least three of the 7, I guess it is, to set our own regional targets. The KIPDA MPO operates in 2 states. And so to say that we support the state's targets is a little trickier than maybe an MPO that's in a single state. So we often try to do above and beyond that, namely on the congestion related measures. The congestion in rural Kentucky and Indiana is not a major thing, but congestion in urban local is obviously a thing. And so we feel it important to do the local measures. We gave a brief update on the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant, and so I'll give a similar update to this group. What's known as our grant agreement. That is basically the contract between KIPDA and the federal government, US DOT. It's been signed by Jared, and it's now in the hands of US DOT. We should get that back hopefully in a day now. That's looking good there. We have a scoping meeting with our consultants next week, so hopefully next month we'll have good framework for you guys to hear about, if not sooner. A couple other agenda items, and one of note that's kind of new and different is Mr. Kyle Thorne. Kyle's our newest and youngest transportation planner, and Kyle presented to the TPC on some external grant opportunities. I know I've talked to this group a few times about how the games kind of changed. Games changed that traditionally federal transportation funding has been formula funded. You get money based on how many people live in your region. Okay, and that's still true. You still get that money. But with the new infrastructure law, there's that money, and then on top of that, there's these discretionary grants, and it's a brand new ballgame. And so KIPDA, KYPC, NDOT, local governments, all of us, we've got to learn to play by these new rules. And so Kyle Thorne is on the transportation side, and CED staff on the agency side at large are happy and willing to help if or when you see one of these grants that strikes your fancy, let us know. But Kyle or KIPDA staff know, and we'll be happy to help the best of our abilities. Brady Hill, back here in the back left, if you haven't met Brady yet, Brady presented to the group an update to our project application. That's real important for those communities in the urban region because there's always changes to these projects, funding changes, schedule changes, etc. And so the project application that we have out there right now is a little bit unwieldy. And so we've streamlined it for most project changes. If you still have substantive ones, you still got to go through a fuller, more complete process. I'll save the rest of what I have to say for agenda item 9. So that concludes the TBC report.
Does anyone have any questions of Andy? Seeing none, motion to approve his report. Motion second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Andy. Next item, regional transportation. Mick?
Good afternoon. The KIPDA Regional Transportation Committee meeting was held at 1 p.m. today in the KIPDA conference room. First agenda item was the June 22nd RPC meeting minutes. The second item was a public comment period, and there were no public comments. The following agenda item was the county transportation updates for the region. The next agenda item was the selection of 9 boost projects for the KYPC shift process. 2 projects were selected from Henry County, 3 from Shelby County, 2 from Spencer County, and 2 from Trimble County. KIPDA staff also gave a report on the Department of Transportation Equitable Transportation Community Explorer. In other business, KIPDA staff gave an update on the Every Commute Counts program, the Safe Streets and Roads for All program, and a planning study for a new I-64 interchange in Eastern Jefferson or Western Shelby County. The next KIPDA Regional Transportation Council meeting is scheduled for November 14th at the Shelbyville Conference Center. That concludes the report.
Does anyone have any questions, comments? I'll entertain a motion to accept the report. I'll have a motion second. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you, Mick. Next item, shift process update. Andy.
Thank you. So as I mentioned, at both committee meetings, they're going on simultaneously, the shift boost process. So early in the spring, we did what was known, both committees, the TPC and the RTC sponsored projects that put projects in the game, that put projects in the system to get through KYTC's data-driven process that funds their highway plan ultimately. Now it's time to boost those projects. So scores exist. We got those scores within the past month. And so the local influence, the local control went to say, hey, that project that got that score, it needs a little boost. We love that project so much. We want to give it some extra love and give it what amounts to 10 extra points by KIPDA, and then potentially 10 more additional points when KYTC might also boost those same projects. KIPDA as the MPO, we had 18 boosts, 18 projects that we could boost. That's what we were allocated. The KIPDA RTC was allocated 9. And so those projects on the TPC side, there was 4 projects in Bullitt County, 3 of which were boosted both by KYTC and KIPDA, included an interchange at Brooks. It included a Kentucky 44 improving project in Mount Washington, and a couple other projects as well. In Oldham County, there's an I-71 project, Kentucky 393 improvement project, and then one other project. Both those first 2 were boosted by both the state and by KIPDA, which indicates, hey, everybody likes that project. Let's get this thing done. Let's get these things funded. In Louisville Metro, there were 11 projects that were boosted. They were pretty widespread throughout the county in terms of the nature of these projects. Some were inside of Waterson, many were in the suburbs, so there's good balance, and that was one of the priorities of Louisville Metro, as I understand it. Interestingly, in the TPC meeting, there was a motion that was made to create a working group that would include KIPDA staff, Bullitt County, Oldham County, and Louisville Metro, basically to take advantage of an opportunity to, fight for maybe some fairness in terms of the boosts, the number of boosts. I mentioned that the TPC has 18 under our control. Our friends in Cincinnati and Lexington, if they got the same boosts, if they got boosts at the same rates, or excuse me, if we got boosts at their rates, we would have gotten 29 or 26 boosts. And if we said, if we took the 3 KIPDA urban counties out and we said, what if the KIPDA TPC got boosts at the rate of the other 117 counties in the Commonwealth, the non-KIPDA MPO counties? We wouldn't get 18 boosts, but I believe the number is 50 boosts. So if we got our so-called fair share, if we got what everybody else got, we would have gotten 50 boosts. That is 50 projects we could have given that extra love to instead of those 18 projects. Now, as we mentioned in TPC, the most important thing is not the number of boosts. The most important thing is the number of dollars in the highway plan. Maybe keep our eye on the price a little bit, but that working group will work to talk to our friends in Frankfurt, powers that be, whether it's legislators or KYTC personnel, to see what we can do to maybe, as we look toward SHIP 2026, and even this highway plan is getting ready to be adopted in the spring. I'll ask Mick if he has anything else to add regarding the RTC boost process. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, unless there are questions from anybody.
That includes the SHIP.
Anyone?
We have to answer any questions.
Have any questions? We don't need a vote on that.
No, we don't.
Okay, thank you, sir. Item number 10, EPA Brownfield Program, Bob Perkins.
The podium, please.
Yes, sir. You take the water. Andrew, and I want to introduce a couple of my colleagues. My name is Bob Perkins. I'm with a environmental consulting firm here in Louisville. We do US EPA brownfield grant, among other things. The big tall guy is Andrew, and the other guy is Charles. They both work with us, and Felicia and Jarrett. We met last week, I guess it was, to talk about potential grant opportunities. I think I've been hearing stuff today. Oh, sure I will. Thank you. Hearing stuff today that sort of mimics the I would say the benefits of this particular grant program. we're seeing from the University of Louisville study that how the population changes are going to be something we're all going to have to deal with. And so these brownfields are going to be something that's going to be part of this redevelopment or reassignment of properties. But today I want to talk about, it is kind of an historic investment in brownfields, and assuming it's the green button here. Right arrow. Right arrow. There we go. Okay. It's kind of a big deal. Which you guys have heard a lot about, the additional funding through the infrastructure program. The EPA has supported the brownfield redevelopment for about 25 years, which is about how long I've been involved in it. And typically the EPA program runs about $100 million per year. For the next, there's 3 more cycles left. They will be averaging about 400 million. So it's a 4-fold increase. So what that means is there's a lot of extra money to assess these brownfield sites, to clean them up. And actually, for instance, we as a small firm, we wrote 7 grants last year. All 7 were funded for $5.5 million. There was only one other grant that was even funded. So by and large, we do most of this work. So we follow it pretty closely. But to have every single grant funded was not something that we expected. The type of grants that would make sense for your communities vary versus the type of grants that would make sense for an area development district. So I'm going to kind of speak both a little bit. The area development districts typically don't own a lot of property. So what they would typically work towards that number 2, the $600 million plot there, the assessment grants, where those assessment grants can be used by anybody within the area development district to assess properties. If you have to be a community, which you own property, a small town, then you might want to be looking at some of these cleanup grants. We wrote 4 cleanup grants last year. The largest of which was the $2 million cleanup for the Hayeswood Hospital in Maysville. So there's a lot of different pots. And we can talk more about those later as we move on, but we're trying to be brief today. So what can these grants be used for? The things I've got listed there is just kind of litany of some of the stuff. The cool thing is that since I've been involved in the program over 20 years, this kind of cool, they've added some market segment. So these are things that couldn't be done years ago. It used to be you could just do phase 1s and phase 2s. Now we can actually, there's a big component tied to planning and economic development. So these grants have really changed over the years from just doing the phase 1s, the phase 2s, to as an integral economic development tool for your community. It kind of starts out with anything does. If you have a piece of property that you're selling, you should always do a phase 1. If you have a piece of property you're buying, you should always do a phase 1. Now, I won't say residential, just get a good home inspection, but any sort of commercial property, don't take it without getting phase 1. It's just not a good idea. And there's a lot of federal money that you lose out on if you don't do that. So, but if you learn nothing else, call us about phase 1s. They're pretty cheap and they do a lot for you.
Can the individual use that money for the individual?
Yes, if my dad owned a gas station or something, yeah, we could use the money for that. You just can't, where the line gets drawn is on the cleanup grants. Cleanup grants have to be municipalities or nonprofits or cities. That's a good question. Everybody, it looks like you think this should be used, just no, it's a pretty wide open program. So always the first thing we do, after we do maybe an inventory or something, or do all the EPA paperwork on the front end, which is quite invasive, but we do a phase 1. And a phase 1's a paper study, if you're not familiar with those. And this basically gives you a kind of a lay of the land of what the property looks like before you sell it, before you buy it. If you don't do this, then from a legality point of view, you don't really know. So if you don't do this, it's a pretty big mistake. Phase 2, on the other hand, may not be necessary unless the phase 1 indicates there might be some environmental contamination, such as asbestos, lead paint, mold, petroleum, chlorinated solvents from dry cleaners, polychlorinated biphenyl, these sort of things. If they are suspected, the EPA will pay to assess those. Again, all this stuff is completely free. Big deal for Kentucky, vapor intrusion. It's something actually, it's a national thing. And the KDEP, Kentucky Environmental Protection, is kind of making us look harder at that. So under this grant, again, vapor intrusion issues can be addressed. It's a little slide here that just talks about, the assessment and cleanup process. The bottom line is there are all kinds of different methods that the state and the federal government allows you to clean up and address these sites. And the more you know how the processes work, is generally speaking, the safer the site will be, and the more you can reduce the cost. And that's obviously very important from a development perspective. Cleanup grants, fantastic. That's what everybody really likes to see. Phase 1s and phase 2s are great. You need them from a legal point of view, but cleanups make things happen. We can remove these contaminants from the building. We can actually, if you take, for instance, if a window is contaminated, we can actually take the window out and the EPA will pay to put one back. If the floor is contaminated with floor tile, we can take the floor tile out and put it back. So you got to think of it in terms of restoration as well. We're working on roofs. We talked about how we're trying to get into approved roofs. Several EPA regions are approving roofs, and we are pretty confident that Region 4, which is where we work in, will allow us to take off a contaminated roof that may have asbestos, put a roof back on. Again, with cleanup grants, keep in mind, these usually have a 20% match. For the next 3 funding cycles, well, there's no match. And you can think about that, no match.
When you were talking about vapor intrusion, are you referring to radon?
It can be contaminated, yes, it absolutely can be. Matter of fact, vapor intrusion acts very similar to radon. Yes. So cleanup grants, pretty big opportunity. So what's the benefits of brownfield redevelopment? What we heard from the study from Matthew was that there's going to be a demographic change. And so you've got to sort of anticipate that in your communities. And so by doing that, these are the things that's going to happen when people move from certain areas to other areas. You're going to have some of these things that happen. But these brownfield grants can be used to address these issues, especially through the planning side of things. And some examples, I mean, we have a lot of clients. Here's a pretty cool project down in Millsboro. That's kind of what the building looks like to the left right now. That's a US EPA funded cleanup grant that we're managing. And to the right is what we're intending to put into, not us, but the developer to plan to put in there. So brownfield redevelopment can go from what's on the left side of the screen to the right side of the screen. And these grants can be used to get you pretty far down the line in terms of getting something like that to happen. This is a current grant that we're managing. Matter of fact, we're going to start to clean up on it next week. If you're familiar with Bentonville, this is a little movie theater. It took like 3 shots to get this, but we finally got it funded. That's what it looks like on the inside. And the EPA is going to fund all the removal of all that material, the contaminants. We're going to repaint it. New materials are going to go in, so it's going to be a pretty good asset to the community. Okay, this is another one. This is in downtown E-Town. E-Town is another one of our clients. To the left, you see, I think is that an old auto repair? Yeah, okay. And then, so the city of E-Town is looking to purchase that. And then the proposal is the apartments you see to the right. And all this is funded, all the funding to assess these things is all coming through grants. And finally, here's Frankfurt's example. There's a distillery up there on the left-hand side that we've evaluated. Latest we've heard is that it looks like they're trying to get another microbrewery coming into there. Former scrap yards. These are all things that you're looking for in your community. Everyone has them. Old shoe factory, scrap yards, gas stations, we all have them. And they're just a blight and an impact to the community. Finally, the most important thing I think that we talk about is the underground storage tanks. There's still a bunch of them out there. This grant will do a lot. This is in Beattyville. This was an unknown tank that during the flood of Beattyville, there was diesel fuel in that tank. The tank got flooded and all the diesel fuel went into City Hall. That was not good. So we could pay to remove the tanks, pay to actually clean up some of the tanks in certain circumstances. And then the bottom right, Grand Hotel, that building's been demolished in the future, and that's in Hazard. It's another site in E-Town. These were tanks to the left. Nobody even knew they were there. But once they were digging around, they found out that they were there. Andrew was working on that project. The tanks got removed and completely paid for by the EPA. In case you're wondering where other ads fit in, everywhere you see a color, pretty much where our firms work in. The ones in yellow, that's the Big Sandy Area Development District, and to the left is the Green River Area Development District. We assisted them in writing a grant, they were both funded. So you can sort of see that there's kind of a gap there. The Bluegrass ad, we're going to help Those folks write a grant this cycle. We hope to be able to help you guys write a grant this cycle. And so that's kind of why I'm here today, to make an opportunity that you guys would like for us to have. Do I have any questions? Okay, there probably will be, if we get selected, there will be a lot of questions. Trust me. There will be a lot of education. This is a very complicated process.
Okay, the dates on all these are proposals due November 2022.
So, yeah, they can. Yeah. And this is something you got to be very aware of. The grant guidance comes out generally about September the 15th, plus or minus, which is not too far off. Then we have 60 days to get the grants in. So that's it. It's a tight schedule, but we're glad to help.
So the next agenda item for me, you could say.
Okay.
So what we're proposing in KIPDA is to do a regional application for this grant. So it's going to include all of the Kentucky counties, as well as the 2 counties in Indiana. We want to partner, thinking it would be best to do the assessment grant. And that way we can get all your communities ready for the cleanup funding. So we'll have a, kind of a master plan as to say, each county will kind of have a list of your priority sites. And then once that plan is completed, then we can apply for the cleanup grant. Am I saying that correctly?
Perfect.
That's perfect. So KIPDA would be the lead applicant on this, but we will work with every county in our region to actually benefit from this grant money. So with that, I'm asking for approval for KIPDA to be the applicant to apply for this grant with the help from Mr. Perkins and his.
I'll make that motion.
Do I hear a second? Any questions, comments?
I'll just make the comment that I'm excited about the opportunity because we do so much, especially on this side of the river, but this gives us the opportunity to work with our Indiana counties with it. So I'm excited about that potential.
And he has
Okay,
been very successful with the other apps, writing a very good application.
Thank you.
Working with you.
we have a motion and a second to enter into an assessment coalition grant. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
So please be on the lookout. We will be reaching out to you and
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alicia.
All right.
Next item, first meeting, Ryan Lloyd.
Yeah, so the brick meeting, this is gonna be our last board meeting before our first stakeholder meeting on September 7th. It's gonna be September 7th here in this room. We're having a 2-hour meeting for the Community Energy Resilience Project. This is something that I've kind of briefly talked to you all about before. I've been in contact with some representatives from some of the counties who are on the stakeholder, who are in the stakeholder group currently. But basically that project is in partnership with the state's energy and environment cabinet. We're going to be looking at our region, trying to assess energy resilience in critical facilities and trying to make some improvements with regard to backup power and improvements to the grid that could help reduce the frequency and severity of power outages. So that meeting on September 7th, that's the first of 2 meetings. The subsequent meeting will be the following year, probably around the same time. And then in between those 2 meetings, there will be a survey that will be disseminated to facilities or as many of the critical facilities in our region as we can get, basically to assess their need for backup power generation, or in the case of utilities, improvements that can be made to sort of fortify the grid against those types of disruptive events. A couple of members from the Energy and Environment Cabinet will be there in the meeting to sort of answer questions. There's still some details coming together about the funding that's earmarked to actually carry out some of these projects that will be identified through the planning study. And then I will be providing some information on the survey tool itself. We've developed a pretty streamlined online survey tool that takes about 5 minutes to complete. It's pretty quick and easy, but sort of as many folks from our region as I can get involved is obviously more helpful. We're trying to reach as many of the critical facilities in this region as possible. So that's something that anybody is interested in participating in. Please get a hold of me after this board meeting, and that's all I have. Just kind of a quick informational thing. So,
Thank you.
yeah. Any questions?
Any questions of Ron? Seeing none, thank you. Next item, Alicia. You're back up again.
This is just a quick update on the comprehensive economic development strategy that Ethan's been working on. The SEDS committee actually met yesterday and approved the plan, the 1-year update to the SEDS document. They approved that, so now it's open up for 30-day public comment period. So I encourage you to go online. It's KIPDA.org, or you can get to it from the KIPDA website. Please review that. And if you have any comments, reach out to either myself or Ethan. What's changed so far on this 1-year update is we did more on broadband, and equity has a new section. There's also a new dashboard that we worked with our GIS department that is a snapshot of each county in our region. It has some very valuable information on that, particular to each county. So it's kind of not all, region based. We go actually down into the and breadth of the counties. So please look over that. If you all have any comments, questions about it, please feel free to reach out. And the comment period will actually end on September 23rd. After the 30-day comment period, we'll come back to the board in November to ask approval for that 1-year update to send to economic development. So thank you very much.
Anyone have any questions, comments? Thank you, Felicia.
Thank you.
Next item, available funding opportunities. Justin.
Public question. So every month we try to create a list of open funding opportunities for you to apply for, so we can help you out with bring applications. I'm not going to read these to you, but I'll point out a couple. The first, the Community Development Block Grant Program, a couple of those opportunities, that application window is coming to a close. But there's still funding available for economic development projects and housing projects. So the caveat there is that you have to benefit low-income residents and or create entertainment. So if you have any projects in mind there, feel free to reach out to us. We'll be happy to do a deeper dive. The second one is the Office of Homeland Security has a state and local cybersecurity grant program, and those applications are due September 15th. And this is for cybersecurity projects, including equipment, personnel training, and sort of just improving your overall cybersecurity as a government. So if you have any interest in applying for that, let us know, and we're happy to help as well.
I'm sorry. One of the benefits for the cybersecurity grant is if you and your community want a ky.gov email address, usually it's $6 per user that they create that account for. With this grant, it's covering the majority of that funding, so it will only be $1.50 to pay and have the security from the state government, and that would be for a ky.gov email.
That price would be for the 4-year grant program, so it's a good time to save some money there. Also, just wanted to say, if you find any other grant opportunities that we don't list, figure to reach out to us. We're happy to help wherever we can. That's all I got.
Anyone have any questions? Thank you, Gus. Next item, 2024 social service business. Jessica.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I've got a few items for approval. I believe it's agenda item number 14 in the packet. We've had a busy month since I saw you last. So I can take the first two together, I believe, Chair and Chairman, and the last one will be separate because I need so as you can see there, we've had some contracts coming through since I visited with you last. One of them is MIPA, which is a traditional contract that we hold for Medicare recipients. NISIP is in addition to our regular Title III and C grants, nutrition for older adults. And two new ones that I'll talk to you briefly about. We received a grant contract from Dale for a vaccine initiative, which is vaccine and possibly vaccine, health fairs, where we will collaborate with local senior centers, other community partners, to assure that older adults receive flu, tetanus. There's another one I always forget, is potentially COVID, what, Dylan?
Shingles.
Thank you, shingles. Shingles always escapes my mind. Shingles, everyone. It's a smaller grant, but for those of you that do work at some of those community organizations or sit on the board, you will see that we will be offering different funding to them for those. We'll likely have a fair held, here right before November, and possibly in the spring as well. We also received another smaller grant that we were actually had two staff prepared to do. Luckily, we were ahead of the game on this one, so it's a grant for mental health and suicide prevention with older adults. That our role in that grant will be to provide community education. And we have our two staff members trained here, so our providers will refer to us when an older adult is in a mental health crisis. So I'm asking for ratification of signature of those contracts in addition to the one right below that, which is our Kentucky caregiver, also known as our grandparents raising grandchildren contract. That was not a major amendment for us. That amendment was actually done because the state, thankfully, received some funding to expand grandparent services across all ads, where there had only been two of us left that provided that service. So there was a small adjustment there. I think we did take just a little drop in funding, but overall it doesn't affect us negatively. So I'm asking for approval or ratification of the executive director signing of those contracts, and I'll take any questions you have about it.
Jensen, do you reach out to us for that, or do I reach out to you? To the senior citizens about them being vaccinated?
Oh, well, when we distribute information, it'll go out to all of you all as well, to distribute. Actually with this grant, thank you, Lord. It came with, plenty of templates we already have in hand that we're gonna use. So I'll make sure that all of you all have the information about the events we're holding or partnerships for those vaccinations. And please come for the ones, you know, when we get our areas settled, come visit with us. Yeah.
Any more questions, comments? Do I have a motion?
Motion.
And a second? And a second? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you, Chairman.
Next item is, national.
Yes.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. So the bottom one there, as you can see, and this is where I will need attention from anyone who sits on multi-purpose community action agencies. Weird, well, not necessarily, but it affects them. To the contract will go to another provider. So you'd be happy to hear this. I know that you all heard me talk about transportation and the challenges there. And we procured for 3B transportation in the spring and finalized contracts. We have one provider that had applied for our typical procurement, but they did not attach all their attachments to the application. So therefore, we had to turn them down at that particular time. They had proposed services above and beyond just the multi-purpose community action agency region. We sought legal advice. And we did approach that applicant, which is Freedom Senior Share. So we are currently negotiating very heavily. We expect an application from them at any day. We had a meeting with them last week to provide senior center transportation in Williamson County finally. Now, we have to go through that whole process of review, but we are going to definitely try to wrap it up as fast as possible. So I'm standing before you today, in the event that we receive that application, we can review it and get it passed through ourselves and the advisory council, that we present it to the executive committee for ratification, and if they approve it, for ratification at the next board meeting. Because we want to get senior center transportation in here. ASAP. So I'm requesting approval to do so.
Okay, any discussion, questions?
I have a question. Well, go ahead, Jerry, either way.
Long story short, like when we had wheels, we bring folks back to the center and all this. This is gonna be the same thing to where we can get the numbers back up to where they should be.
Yes.
I mean, they're gonna go out, pick them up, bring them in like on whatever schedule we had before.
Correct, yes. We presented schedules, we've given them numbers for pre-COVID.
Yes,
numbers?
yes, ma'am.
Yes, we are very excited that that is exactly what this will.
So I can go back over on Fridays now and bring them fish and all the fun stuff. We can have fun again. We can watch movies and shoot.
Yes,
pool and all that.
please do. Yes, please do. They were very adamant about when can we start, and I was like, as soon as we can push this through, you get us an application, hopefully with some reasonable numbers on it, we are going to boom, boom, boom.
So do I have to abstain?
No, you actually.
I would say Judge Summers, Judge Travis, and then Deputy Judge Park would abstain.
Fair enough.
Really? Is this okay?
Because the contract's not going to be approved, but you all are there. Just to be safe, how y'all doing?
Okay, we need a motion to accept the transportation contract.
Someone make that motion.
Thank you, sir.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Anything else?
Very overrated.
I think that's it. It's talking about.
I didn't want to cut your doors. Next item, National Family and Kentucky Caregiver Program. Mary Ann and Amanda.
Good afternoon, I'm Amanda. I coordinate the National Family Caregiver Program and coordinate grandparents raising grandchildren. So we just wanted to come share with you today, that next week we are attending the Southeastern Association of Area Agencies on Aging Conference. And there we're going to be presenting a workshop called Grandparents and Caregivers, meeting them where they are. And we're really excited to present at this conference and share with all of the other states that are represented there about how our programs have grown. So if you have meetings or events in your areas and you would like for us to come present about caregivers and grandparents, we would be glad to do so. So just let us know.
And in November is Caregiver Month, and November 9th, we are planning a senior health fair for caregivers, grandparents, and seniors for our more rural counties. We're partnering with a local church in Shelby County and other agencies, the Bluegrass AAA there. And this endeavor hopefully will reach some of our more rural counties. And that'll be, I think it was on November 9th.
That's the date we're shooting for.
Yes.
So we go.
Anyone have any questions?
Yeah, we'll give you details about the health fair. Yeah.
Okay, no action is required. Next item, agency surplus property. Cheryl.
Good afternoon. I'm just here for information to let everyone know that we're in the first step of our surplus equipment process. And for the ones that are new, what we've done some spring and summer cleaning around here. We have some surplus items. The first step in that process is to offer the board to do a sealed bid process. And I put dates in the packet that you guys have. We're gonna offer those Thursday night, September the 7th, Friday the 8th, Monday the 11th, and Tuesday the 12th. For you guys to be able to come and view that if you'd like. We could then take sealed bids. I asked that you would email those to me, and my email address is for them there, CherylVander@KIPDA.org. Decisions on the distribution of property will be made by Friday, September the 15th. We'll let you guys know if you were the successful bidder. And then you can come by and pick those up on Monday, September the 18th or Tuesday, September the 19th. There's a couple of little caveats. We want the offer or the statement of intent to be on your stationery. Yeah, like I said, it should be emailed to me. Items go to the highest bidder. If the checks would be made to payable to KIPDA, or we can send you an invoice, but make note of that on your bid or your offer of intent, whether you're going to do a check or if you want to do bill. And just for informational purposes, the second step in that, then if items left after the bid for the board, then goes to bid on. The third part of that is then it goes to the KIPDA employees to bid on. And then final, if we have items left over, we haven't sold everything, then we'll come back out to the board and allow you to offer those to organizations and parts of the, and then that's all I have, and that's no action required.
Cheryl, just while to refer to Paul, I know that there are often questions, especially about the computers. Paul, could you just speak just briefly just about the life that's left on the computers that are listed here in Philadelphia?
Well, we don't put computers on the sheet until they're 4 years old, so most everything is 4, 5, or 6 years old. I think the last surplus was a year or two. The last surplus was there. So everything would be between 4 and 6 years old, so it's still good. But you know how stuff changes. They get obsolete very quick, but so that I would keep that in mind as far as your bid goes. But we put the description and the specifications in the spreadsheet that Cheryl was sending out. But we don't include anything until we don't remove anything or include it into surplus until it's 4 years old. We use them for that long.
I would say also for these computers, they're probably all running Windows 10, right? And cannot run Windows 11. So while they still have some life left in them, I think Windows 10 is dropping support next year sometime in October, I think is what it is. Not that you can't still use them, but you would have to provide some kind of other protection than rely on the security updates that come to Windows.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Next item. Jared.
Well, I'm gonna let Kelly give her presentation and then I will. You can stand up.
So this is agenda item number 17. We had 2 new hires in August. Christy Nuss was hired as a receptionist. On a permanent basis. She started July 31st. She began working at KIPDA in March of this year, so we hired her permanently. Megan Agnew this is Megan here. She started August 14th and will be replacing me as Director of Human Resources. Her most recent professional experience includes 13 years with the Legal Aid Society as Chief Operating Officer and Director of Development and Communications, and 3 years at Kentucky Elder Law as Office Manager. Megan earned a Master of Public Affairs degree from Indiana University Bloomington and a Bachelor of Science degree from Center College. Resignations, we had 1 resignation, Jackie Duke, who resigned as a service advisor effective August 4th. We have 3 position vacancies, all in social services. 1 is home care case manager, 1 is connector, the other is service advisor. Those job descriptions can be found as usual on our website, kipda.org/careers. Our staff count is 85 full-time permanent, 2 part-time permanent, 3 full-time temporary, and 3 part-time temporary. That concludes my final personnel report. Action is requested if there are questions.
Anyone have any questions? Sure.
Well, I would just like to say that Deputy Judge Park said in June that every time he comes here, we seem to have somebody retire, and I know that's my life. But I just want to really thank Kelly. Kelly started here when she was like 15 years old. Built the ride share program, and then she served the last 10 years as the Director of Human Resources and Administrative Services. And obviously she's done a tremendous amount moving this agency forward. But personally, I want to thank her because she has been instrumental in my growth as Executive Director, which I've been in that role for 5 years now. During the COVID pandemic, when nobody was here, it was Kelly and a couple other people in this building every day, and really built a strong relationship with her during that time. So she always brought a calming presence regardless of the situation. You're going to be tremendously missed, and thank you for everything you've done for KIPDA.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I appreciate everybody. The staff has been great. We have a great, I say that at the board meetings, the staff is great. I was 15 when I started. special permit, and I started in the rideshare program, which is now every commute counts, and worked in that program for about 17 and a half years and built that program up. It was my little baby. I built that up, and then Tina Snyder, who was my predecessor in HR, I felt like she was grooming me from the get-go, to be HR. So when she retired in 2013, I applied and was a little nervous about it, but knew I also had a lot more to offer to KIPDA than just, being in rideshare, because I've already kind of done a lot of that for 17 years. So I came over to HR and it's been great. I feel like I have improved a lot of things and moved us forward in a lot of areas, and it's grown, the staffing has grown. It's grown, it shrank, it grew, and COVID was kind of a challenge. But we worked through it, and I think our staff was great through that. I will miss everybody because I've grown up here. I've been here for 27 years. But I'm moving on to pastures, which are unknown. I don't have a job lined up, so I'm going to be thinking about you all at the board meeting time. And possibly joining Jerry for some fish, and might be out there joining him, you never know. So I just want to thank everybody, thank the staff, thank the board for, Jared's been a great support to me since he's become executive director, and we've done a lot of things together, and I will miss you too. I will miss everybody. But I only live like 2 miles from here. So, you'll see me at McDonald's and Taco Bell. So I'll see you around. So thanks again, everybody.
Well, I didn't think it'd be I didn't think it would be appropriate to ask her to make her own cupcake. We celebrate this is fun, but after the meeting, we do have a cupcake. You just decline, but we do have cookie cake to celebrate Kelly after the meeting.
Thank you, Kelly. Next item, Medicaid fund recoupment update, Jared.
All right, on to a little more somber subject. Okay, excuse me. Personnel.
Okay, sorry. Sheriff Kelly's report. We got a motion and second. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Well, back to the Medicaid update. As you all may remember, this issue has been going on. It dates back to fiscal year 17 and 18 during the home and community-based waiver transition. And KIPDA continued at the direction of the Cabinet for Health and Family Services, providing services to our clients or to the Cabinet's clients in waiver, but due to some processing errors, we were not paid. We've been trying to work through these issues with the Department for Medicaid for several years. We didn't get anywhere. So in January of 21, we engaged with our attorney, Chris Melton, who is a colleague of Mitzi back there. And we have tried to work with the Cabinet's attorneys for the past, since January of 2021. We started the process with a beginning balance outstanding of $474,680.65. That has seen very limited improvement. We have received payment of $68,486. So the outstanding balance remains at $406,297. This board authorized KIPDA to file a lawsuit for recoupment in November 22nd of 2022. At the time, we did not want to file the lawsuit. We really hope we can come up with a resolution. I've spoken with Rocky Atkins. We have continued conversations with the Cabinet's attorneys and with Medicaid, but in calendar year 2023, we have only received $14,000 of these outstanding payments. So at the direction of our counsel, lawsuit was filed in Jefferson Circuit Court on Tuesday. I was in communication with our board chair, Judge Eisen, who approved and told us to proceed. So that's the update I have. The lawsuit has been filed. He's spoke with the cabinet's attorney prior to filing, just to give them a heads up, because we wanted to stress our appreciation and value of our relationship with the cabinet and for Medicaid, but we just need to get paid for the services that were rendered. So the cabinet understood. We continue to express we would like to reach a settlement. The cabinet's attorney this week shared that he was still open to trying to come up with a bulk settlements. We're hoping that by filing this, that maybe this will kind of incentivize them to move forward a little bit more to get this resolved. So I will continue to keep you all updated, but again, that lawsuit was filed on Tuesday in Jefferson Circuit Court. If you all have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Any questions?
What was the balances left on that?
$406,297.11. And I want to really recognize J.R. Chisholm on KIPDA staff, who has maintained the database and kept up with these claims throughout the years, because it's been a very complicated process and it's taken a lot of patience and determination on his part. But that's where.
Do we need a?
No, sir, no motion.
Because we approved that a long time.
Right.
Okay. Next item is intergovernmental reviews.
There are 5 of them, and these 5 items can all be taken together. They have been sent out for local review and no comments were received.
Okay. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion, second. Any questions, comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item, executive director's report.
I have 5 travel items for the board's consideration. The first is the Kentucky Association of District Directors. Our monthly meetings are going to be held in Elizabethtown. They're going to include a tour of the Blue Oval site, as well as an aerial tour of Fort Knox. So it will require an overnight stay, and that would be me attending. The second item is the same association's peer support group. The area development districts, we have a group of 3 other directors that go visit another peer agency in order to just try to learn best practices. And that is an overnight stay, the 26th and 27th of September in Moorhead. Again, myself attending, there's no registration cost, so that's just the hotel room and mileage. The third item is the Kentucky Association of Mapping Professionals. This is in Owensboro, October 10th to 12th, and our GIS staff will be attending. They're actually kind of participating and helping run that conference. And Andy is an Amory, an officer on camp. The fourth item is the Mental Health and Aging Conference. That is going to be would be attended by Amanda Davis and Dia Urbanbeck on our social services staff, and that is in Bowling Green, October 18th to 19th. And then the final travel item for consideration is the 2023 NATO, which is the National Association of Development Organizations Annual Training Conference, November 6th to 10th in Cleveland, Ohio. And along with this would be the NATO board meeting where I'm on their board, and the staff members attending would be myself along with Felicia. And then we open it up to the travel for these items to our executive committee, and council member Bowling and his wife were also listed to attend. So again, for your all's consideration, these 5 items, and they can be put together.
Any questions, comments? Motion, second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Motion carries.
And then finally, the meetings next month, there are no transportation meetings. So it will just be the board of directors meeting here in the boardroom at 2 o'clock, and we will be joined by Lieutenant Governor Jacqueline Fulton. And this concludes my report.
Thank you. Any other business to come before the board? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Second, all in favor? Consider us adjourned. Thank you.